but we'll make a start. So welcome to Meditation Night. My name is Dharmanatha, and I'm here at Cambridge Buddhist Centre. And I have some of the team with me. So Liz is on the computer behind the camera, making sure that we, hopefully, that we stay hooked up to YouTube. Hi, Liz.
Hi.
Great. And Vidya Saki is over to my left, at the front of the stage. Hi, Vidya Saki. And Sumudra Ghoshar is to my right, also on the stage.
Hello.
Great, thank you. So I feel nicely accompanied. It's nice to be here with my friends. Like so many people, I guess, I've spent a lot of time doing this on my own, so this feels different. And you're here, of course, all of you lovely people that have logged on to YouTube. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, but I think it bears repeating. There's a real sense of you being here with us in the Buddhist Centre and practicing with us. And I know, having spoken to a few people since then, that some of you, or hopefully most of you, can feel that connection as well. And it's quite mysterious, really, that we can overcome these barriers to make these connections. It's a little bit, it's almost spooky, which is appropriate because we're going to talk about spiritual death, which is it's quite mysterious. Yeah. This is number 5 of a series of 8 meditation nights. And we've called the series The Way to Full Potential. And we're linking this in with a course that we're running on Saturday mornings called The Journey and the Guide. There's some people from the course here, and it's great to have them with us. You don't need to be on the course to come to these evenings. You don't need to have come to any of these evenings before to stay tonight. And I will try and give us all a bit of context to remind those people who have been here before, and particularly people who are new, to sort of ease them into where we've got to on this particular journey. I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes. I tend to run over a bit sometimes, but I'll do my best to stick to the timings. And then we will meditate together for 20-25 minutes. And then we'll have a chance for some questions. If you have any questions, you can type into the chat, and I'll do my best to answer the questions at the end of the evening. The meditation tonight is the mindfulness of breathing, but we've played about with the practices a bit to help us tie in with the theme of the evening. So we will be breathing. I'm sure that's a relief, and we'll be breathing mindfully, but we won't be doing the practice in the way you may have done it before. We have some very helpful videos on this channel. Vidya Saki taking us through our 2 main practices, the metta bhavana, the cultivation of loving kindness, and the mindfulness of breathing. So if you're not used to our practices, then do go and have a look at those sometime in the future, after this evening. Yeah, so we're in the middle of an 8-week course, and we've been following the Buddha's path, or the Buddhist path, to full potential, to awakening. And so far we've looked at 2 stages of the path, at integration and positive emotion. And we're moving on this evening to spiritual death. But I wanted to say a little bit about those 2 stages first, to give you some context, and because they lead us towards spiritual death. They provide conditions for us to engage with spiritual death, whatever that is. I'll try and explain that a little later. So integration is pulling ourselves together, not in a sort of harsh pull yourself together way, but in a gentle collecting, sort of bringing more of us together, more of ourselves together, so that we can act as a more whole being. So we can act from our best values, our highest values. And we've got all of ourselves, or as much of ourselves as we can gather, to put into that endeavour. Positive emotion is actually quite straightforward. It's what it says on the tin. It's cultivating generosity, kindness, friendliness, compassion, all those positive, healthy emotions. And of course, on these evenings, we've been meditating with those qualities in mind, trying to bring those qualities into our meditation. And we'll do some of that later this evening. On the course, we have been inviting people to do something else as well. We've been doing that as well. We're all of us here are also on the course, and we've been doing these practices. So we've been doing things like taking a walk, a mindful walk, which helps with integration. And we've been doing something generous or kind at least once a day. We haven't limited people to once a day. You can do, you can be as kind as you like. But we've tried to deliberately do something in particular once a day. And you know what? It's been really nice. It's really nice to be kind to people, to be kind to yourself. It's nice to feel a little more collected and together. And there's a bit of a danger there, because we can get stuck at this stage of being nice, being kind, being friendly. The Buddhist Center is a bit like that. It's a really nice place. It's full of lovely people. There's tea, there's biscuits. I always mention the biscuits. I probably need to look at that. But anyway, there's biscuits. Often there's biscuits. But there's more to life than, however nice the Buddhist Center is, there's more to life than hanging out with our friends at the Buddhist Center. And there's more to life than taking a nice walk in the country and being kind to ourselves and others. And to really see that there is more, we need to engage with another one of these stages, which we're not treating separately. It's sort of running through the 8 weeks, and this is receptivity, in particular spiritual receptivity. So we need to be really open to our experience, particularly when we're practicing. And if we are, we'll begin to notice that there is something more, that there is somewhere else to go with our lives and with our practice. For my mindful walk, I was quite often wild camping in Norfolk, and I usually wild camp in a forest, because actually wild camping's a bit naughty. You're not meant to do it unless you have permission. So it's good to find a forest to hide in, and some of the forests in Norfolk are really big, really tall trees. I'm sure a Canadian or an American would be disappointed. There's no giant redwoods or anything. But there are big trees. And I remember a couple of weeks ago waking up at about 2:00 in the morning, for obvious reasons. If there are any men out there that are over 60 as well, you know why I woke up at 2:00 in the morning. And looking out, I could see these trees going on. It just seemed like they went on forever. I couldn't see the tops of the trees. And I understand, this may be, I don't know if it's true or not, but somebody told me once that the roots of a tree go down as far as the tree goes up. So it might be rubbish, but I had a real sense of the trees going down a long way as well. And there's a lot going on in a forest. It's not quiet. There's hoots and slithery things in the bushes, and there's really rich smells. So a lot of input in terms of sense. And I had a feeling that I go on like that as well. I go to heights that I cannot see, and I have depths that I can't see or feel, but they're there. I have a sense that they're there to be reached out towards. When I was generous, not just the once, I was generous more than once. I felt this opening out, not just to the person I was being generous to, but a wider opening out to others, whoever they were, wherever they were, a connection to others, and a slight lessening of my connection to myself. Conversely, when I wasn't kind, when I wasn't nice, there may be people watching this that know that sometimes I'm not always nice or kind. So when I was unkind, I noticed that I contracted, I shrunk. I shrank away from others, around something in me. It felt a bit like Gollum in the Lord of the Rings, with his precious, and he's holding tightly onto something that's actually hurting him. I'm sorry if somebody doesn't get that reference. Just read the book, watch the films. Lord of the Rings. So this is what I was shrinking back into, was a sense of having a self, a permanent, fixed self. And bad behavior is all about this self. We are literally selfish for ourselves. It involves this illusion of having a self in that way, because it doesn't exist. If we look really closely at our experience, we will find that we're a continuous flow of body, of emotions, of thoughts, of habits. There's nothing that doesn't move. There's nothing that doesn't change. There's nothing sitting inside us that is the same all the time. So when we talk about spiritual death, what is actually dying is a delusion that we have one of these selves. And if we manage to start loosening our hold on this self, we'll start being freed from it, freed from the restrictions it places upon us. We can open up to the freedom of whatever lies beyond it. So opening up to, well, for me, the tops of the trees, the bottoms of the trees, the breadth of the forest. And more of that in subsequent weeks, because we'll move on to spiritual rebirth in 2 weeks' time. We'll spend 2 weeks looking at spiritual rebirth. So what I've done my best to do is to give you a felt sense of what this self feels like. And as I'm saying it, I'm sort of squeezing my chest, because that's what it feels like to me. It feels like something quite tight in there. And that's what I want to work with in our meditation tonight. The other reasons I've tried to give a feeling for this is that words often trip us up here, because it's quite easy, I think, to prove intellectually to ourselves that this fixed self doesn't exist. But we can do that, and we can still feel it, we can still sense it. So we need to work with our felt sense of the self. And language doesn't help, doesn't it? I asked somebody to listen to this talk about 2 days ago, and I said, can you count the number of times I say I or me? And it was a lot. And in a way, I know it's a convention, but that doesn't really help, does it? Yeah. So I have, I guess I'm a little old-fashioned in a way, but I have a habit of when I read something that I really like, or I hear something that I really like, I write it down in a little black book. And I've got one of those. There's quite a library. I've got one of those with me. And I wrote this down. And this is about how language trips us up, potentially, around this issue of having a fixed self. This is by a chap called Francis Story. I might need my spectacles. Bear with me. Here we go. Actually, you can probably tell they're not my spectacles, they're my wife's spectacles. So Francis Story, and this is quite old, I don't even know whether he's a Buddhist, but this is what he writes. When we say, yesterday I did so-and-so, we are speaking in conventional terms. To be more nearly precise, we should say, yesterday, the aggregate of physical and mental elements that constituted what was then called I, and which was the causal forerunner of what is called I today, did so-and-so. And this is the beauty of being on YouTube, isn't it? You can listen to that again and save me repeating it. If it didn't make sense the first time around, it might not make sense the second time around, but yeah, if it was really confusing, give it another go. Okay. So we're going to meditate now. So please make yourselves comfortable. Get yourself a blanket. Feel free. I always find myself saying things like this. I think, help yourself to a blanket. And I think they're your blankets. Of course, you don't need my permission, but do make yourself comfortable. Make sure you're warm. And I think a lot of you have meditated before, if not all of you, even if it's not meditating with us. So you may well be familiar with posture already. But I'll just remind you that it's useful to have your feet firmly connected to the ground. So if you're on a chair, if you can, have your feet flat on the ground. And also have a firm connection between your bottom and the cushion or the chair. Making sure, if you can, that you're not slumped back. Ideally, your body, your pelvic structure is supporting your back. So your back is rising fairly straight but relaxed from the pelvic structure. Letting the back follow its natural curves. So not rigid, but upright. Making sure as best you can that your hands are supported. So either resting on your thighs, in your lap, tucked into a blanket, wrapped around you, whatever works for you. And just checking that the head is balanced on top of the spine. Point of balance for the head is usually tilted slightly forward. And to get a sense of this, it can help to imagine an invisible line running from the crown of your head up to the ceiling and being very gently pulled. And actually, two of my friends here in the theatre are lying down because they have various ailments. So if you are lying down, that's fine. You can still still check to make sure that your body is comfortably aligned. Even if you're flat on the floor, you can still check this. And now we'll just notice parts of the body. And it may help you to close your eyes at this point, if you're happy to do that. So starting with our feet, perhaps, looking for any sensations in the feet, perhaps the contact with the floor, temperature, and noticing maybe that if we notice a sensation, it often changes as we're noticing it. Even if it's only changing a small fraction, it's still changing, constantly changing. We're going to allow our attention to move to the lower legs, the calves, the shins, noticing whatever's present. And any sensations may be pleasant, unpleasant, or somewhere in the middle. Just noticing what's there. Not trying to change anything. Now moving our attention towards the knees, front of the knees, the kneecaps, the hollow behind the knees. Noticing what's there. And if there's no particular sensation there, noticing that. Now the thighs, front of the thighs, the back of the thighs. Perhaps noticing the contact between the cushion or the chair and the backs of your thighs. Pelvic structure, the buttocks, the hips, the groin. And now the back, the lower back, the shoulder blades, the shoulders, the upper arms, the forearms and the hands. Noticing what's there. Noticing what changes. And now the front of the torso, the chest and the belly. Perhaps noticing the movement of these areas with the in-breath and the out-breath. And allowing our attention to move to the neck and the head. Noticing what's there. Becoming aware of the whole body. The whole body. As best we can now, sitting completely still. The only movement, the movement of the body with the breath. Do you have a sense of holding on to self in the body right now? And if you don't, that's okay. We can perhaps try turning towards any sensations of tightness, any gripping in the body. We can check the usual areas where we hold tension. The shoulders. Are the shoulders coming up towards the ears? The eyes? Are the eyes shut tightly, screwed shut? The forehead, the mouth, all these areas we might find some tension or tightness. Is the jaw clenched? And whatever you find, as best you can, not reacting. Even if these sensations are unpleasant. See if you can relax these areas. Softening into any tension. Breathing into any discomfort. Notice that discomfort will change, just as everything else changes. And often just as we pay it attention. The mindfulness of breathing. We're contacting the sensations of the breathing. help to take a few deep breaths, just to find these sensations. And if you've done this, allowing your breath to return to whatever pattern it takes today. Not trying to control or change the breath. Noticing the pattern of the breath. But there's a small gap between the end of the out-breath and the beginning of the in-breath. And it can help our attention to place a count in this small gap. Quietly, to ourselves, counting each breath. So breathing in, breathing out, 1. Breathing in, breathing out, 2. Marking each breath until you get to the 10th breath. And then starting again at 1. Just being with the breath as it breathes itself. Notice that while we call it the breath, it isn't a thing. It's not a static thing. It's a process. The breath is moving all the time, changing all the time. Each breath is unique. It appears once, and as we notice it, it's gone. And if you become distracted, that's okay. That's what minds tend to do. Just noticing that's happened, if it happens. Accepting whatever has arisen, whether it's a thought or a feeling, a sensation. Accepting it as part of the ever-changing flow of thoughts, emotions, sensations. Letting it be there. And returning to the breath. And letting go of the counting. Continuing to notice the breath. Seeing if we can do this in a more open, receptive way. Not trying to change it. And same with the body, not trying to change what you feel. not even trying to relax. And in this stillness, perhaps a sense of spaciousness. Letting go. Something bigger than you may be present. Still you, but more than your usual experience. Perhaps a pull towards a more expansive, more fulfilled you. Seeing if we can let go even more. Letting go of any effort. Just sitting for a few more minutes until I ring the bell. Taking your time, and quite kind and gentle with yourself. And if you've had your eyes closed, then just opening them whenever you're ready. So we have about 15 minutes left together, and we like to leave this space so you can ask any questions you have. So please do feel free to post any questions.
Are you happy with comments as well as questions?
It depends. No, of course I am.
Through yet, but
yes, of course.
That's sometimes a bit easier to think of, isn't it?
Yeah, please feel free to make a comment if you like as well. Yeah.
I was just saying that because I had a comment. It's not really a question.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
But I was just thinking about that image you gave to start with of the trees, of, wild camping and the trees going, the deep roots going down and the tall heights reaching up. But also you mentioned the sense of expansiveness. Of, it was like you're not just the only tree, there's all this other. And that was the sense that I got from it anyway, that I really liked that image of it. How we limit ourselves, but actually there's this massive expanse around us.
Yeah, and that's one of the real advantages of using imagery, isn't it? I think we'll certainly move on to this in later weeks, but the really great thing with imagery is it means something slightly different to everybody. Everybody can approach it from a slightly different angle. Thanks.
Alison's just posted something, so thank you, that was great. You mentioned spiritual death at the beginning, but her YouTube froze when you were talking about the forest story, so she may have missed something, but could you say a little bit more about what it is? Yeah,
okay. Shame about the forest story, that was really good. Liz enjoyed it. So I'm sorry that froze a bit, and I'm sorry as well because I always know, this is a bit egotistic, isn't it? When I freeze, I always freeze in an unpleasant. Anyway, moving on. So spiritual death is about letting go of a feeling, a belief that we have a fixed, unchanging self that sits inside us, that everything else changes, but this self doesn't. And one of the reasons that it's a really good idea to try letting go of it is that it holds us back, it holds us inside us. So we're doing stuff for us, for this self. And it sort of disconnects us from other people. And as we start letting go of this self, we start opening out to other people and bigger experiences. I could say more. I can always say more, but I'm aware there may be some other questions. So I hope that's helped. But
Miriam was just saying, that's a strong tree image. Thank you. She was thinking of the branches reaching out too, and everything jumping on and around, having an effect.
Isn't that great? Yeah. See, I hadn't thought of that at all. Isn't that? That's a lovely image of. If you hang about with us for any length of time, we'll start talking about conditions and how conditions, create the world, create us. And that's a lovely image for me of conditions sort of bouncing about and feeding into our experience. Thank you.
Alison says, thank you, that's very helpful and connects with what you were talking about earlier. So perfect.
Lovely, thank you. Thanks, Alison.
And Chris says, integration means becoming more focused, but perhaps not in relation to a sense of self then, or not in relation to a fixed self.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a really good point. Nicely put. I think we have to see this self. So in a way, integration, pulling all of us together, this is part of us. We may be very helpful to let go of it, but it's really useful to notice it when it's there. We behave unkindly, then we can feel it. So it's really useful to feel it, because we part of integration is knowing what's in us, not just the helpful stuff, but also the stuff that's unhelpful. So yes, it does come into integration, recognizing the self, how we hold it. Yeah, thank you. Good question.
Angela is asking a question. She says, when she's focusing on the breath in meditation, I sometimes have a tendency to try and control the breath. When I just focus on this, I can sometimes feel some anxiety too. Any tips on how to work with this? Yeah.
Don't worry. Don't worry. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, it is a bit like the, this is almost inevitable, isn't it? I know as soon as I say to somebody, don't hold the breath tightly, don't change the breath, that we have, that triggers it for some of us, doesn't it? I then try and control the breath, change it. So the first tip is don't worry about that. It's just notice it. The fact that you've noticed it is really positive. And it's not a huge problem. It's just interesting, isn't it? So having noticed it, perhaps think about playing with letting go of it gradually. What would it be like if I've started to control the breath? Isn't that funny? That it's been suggested I don't control the breath, and that's exactly what I've done. Aren't we strange? So maybe approaching it like that and playing, being playful around letting go of it again. And then if you grab hold again, control it, that's fine. Let go of it again. Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, people keep on making me laugh. So Alison's saying, try to be breathed rather than breathe. Trying to be breathed. Yeah, makes sense, doesn't it? But then Chris has put, Fiona says, don't think about a pink elephant.
Yeah, absolutely. She's right. That's exactly what it is. Thanks, Fiona. That's the image, isn't it? Don't think about a pink. Stop thinking about the pink elephant, everybody. Yeah, perfect. But it doesn't matter. The pink elephant is there. It's fine. Just notice it and gradually return to the breath.
I was just thinking about that thing you read out from your little black book.
Yeah.
About Chris's thing about becoming more focused, but not into, becoming more aware of your sense of self, but then letting go of it. But also that thing you read out just really sort of highlights that, doesn't it?
Yeah. Don't start talking like that. That's not what Buddhists talk like.
Buddhist talk, that is.
Yes. Yeah. So we've got another 5 minutes or so. So we've got plenty of time for another question or two. If anybody has one, or as Liz said, if you've got any comments you'd just like to drop in, that's fine as well. Yeah. Actually, please do put a question in if you have one, but I'll just mention a couple of things while we're waiting for any more comments or questions. The first one is that maybe you can tell, but we're all delighted to be doing this. I don't want to be paid for doing this. It's fantastic. It's really good fun. I feel really, really privileged to be here with you. And we're in a lovely Buddhist centre, and we'd like to open it again. And it has upkeep costs. So we do need, ideally we need donations coming in. So just invite you, if you're able to, if you feel you want to, then please do feel free to make a donation to the Buddhist Centre, Cambridge Buddhist Centre. And as I speak, I think Liz is putting a link on the the computer thing for you to make a donation if you wish. I'll also mention that this series continues, so if you can, please come again this time next week, at 7 o'clock next week, and Samudra Ghosha will be presenting again on spiritual death, and the title of his evening is Spiritual Death, Accepting What Is. Accepting what is. Yeah. Anything else?
Well, Alison's just said, lovely, love these Thursday nights. Thank you.
Very welcome. Yeah. Yeah. Because Gabby said happy Thursday right at the beginning, didn't she? There we go. Happy Thursday. Good.
Happy Thursday.
Good. I'm glad you had a nice evening. Thank you. It's nice to hear that.
I think that's it. Everyone's just thinking about pink elephants now.
Yeah, sorry about that. Well, it wasn't my fault, actually, was it? I didn't mention the elephants.
You didn't mention it.
No, it was Fiona, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine that Glenn's sitting there with a pink elephant, actually.
Miriam says, thank you all, big heart.
Lovely. Lovely.
Oh no, Glenn's busy meditating.
He's
got no time for pink elephants.
Glenn is really good. We've seen some pictures of Glenn meditating. It's very good. Yeah.
Oh, you've got some chai jealousy going on from Gabby, but she says thanks very much.
Yeah, I'll bring some on Saturday, Gabby.
To the Zoom call.
So you can watch me drinking it again. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's lots of thank yous coming through. And Sarah, who's come for the first time tonight, has had a great first session.
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Sarah. Nice to hear that. Yeah.
And Claire says thanks for a super evening.
Oh, one more thing. Yes, subscribe. I knew I'd forgotten something. Hit this. My yoga teacher keeps telling me this. Hit the subscribe button. Yeah, I haven't done it there. As a confession, I must do that when I get home. It's unfair not to, isn't it? So yeah, if you hit the subscribe button, I don't think anything terrible happens. I just think that you stay connected with us. And
no, well, it helps us because it means that our videos are more likely to get replayed other places.
Oh, I see.
It'll be helpful for us, but also it helps if there's a little notification bell, I think, that people can get updates on our YouTube channel. Okay,
so they don't miss anything.
You won't miss a thing, don't worry. Hit subscribe, it'll be fine.
Yeah, subscribe. But Liz told me it's fine.
It's fine.
If it's not, blame her.
Yeah.
Not me. Yeah, no, be good. Thank you. If you could do that, I think it's fairly easy. It's a little red button, usually, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a button
that you just click on.
Paul just says, thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of the evening. He's thinking of an oak tree, which is like an iceberg with 2/3 of the roots hidden underneath, very deeply rooted. Yeah.
Thank you, lovely. We use that image quite a bit, actually, don't we, the iceberg, when we're talking about self, or, our whole selves and the process of integration, how much of us is not readily accessible to us, but is definitely there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. No more questions.
Okay. Well, we're very nearly there. I got told off this evening because last time I just sort of faded into the distance. So I got asked to finish rather more in a more marked fashion. So I will this time. So thank you ever so much for tuning in, everybody. I've really enjoyed it. I'm glad to hear that some of you have as well. Look forward to seeing the Journey and the Guide people on Saturday, and the rest of you next week, next Thursday. Thank you.